This is the Clark County Library. I was here 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, but it seems more like summer then than now because it's so rainy. And at the time I said I would be crossing this overpass right ahead. And that is what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be looking at an area right to the east of downtown Vancouver with a lot of historical sites. And this is the freeway, which will be important in a while. And in the distance is the I-5 bridge, which is going to be replaced. So we are entering the Fort Vancouver National Site. It's a historical site. Some of it is still federal property, and there's a federal park here, a national park. And then some of it is just historic places that are privately owned, but part of the historic site. Ice 9. So here we have on the right, this is the national park, the National Historical Site. This was a U.S. Army fort. Before that it was a Hudson's Bay fort, Fort Vancouver. And so this is part of a National Historic Park, a National Historic Site. And then over on the left, we have what's called Officers Row, which is shaded by the trees right now, which is when this was a U.S. Army fort, this is where the officers lived, including some famous officers, and we'll be seeing that. So I would probably be speaking out of architectural ignorance if I said this was Victorian architecture. Obviously different than a traditional Victorian house, but about the same era, late 1800s. And now, even though these are on the National Historical Sites, these are not museums. Well, some of them are, but a lot of them, as we can see, these are just the offices of law offices. We have insurance company. So a lot of professional businesses have headquarters here, kind of prestigious because it's very historical. And it's a nice place along here. And some of this, such as this, is some type of restaurant. The eatery, which is another way of saying restaurant, I guess, at the Grant House. That's Ulysses S. Grant. Two commanders-in-chief of the U.S. Army were stationed here. Ulysses S. Grant and George Marshall, which we will be seeing the Marshall House pretty soon. And another thing is that, like I said in a previous video, we are having this weird late spring. So usually by this point in June, we looked over at that park, it would be full of buzzing bees and giggling people and all sorts of celebrations, but today it's kind of downcast a little. So this is the Marshall House. Perhaps the residence of George C. Marshall. He was stationed here. I don't know if he was stationed in this exact house or if it is just named after him. And I wish I knew more about the architecture, because this is architecturally one of the most impressive ones. I also don't know if these were single family dwellings, because for a kind of small army outpost, it seems kind of unusual to have such a large house for a single officer. So that's part of the history I don't know, but I can tell you that's a very nice house. And this is an event venue, so if you want to get married here and you have a lot of money and you can book a couple years in advance probably, you can get married here. And over here we have the main point of the historic park, which is a reconstruction of the Hudson's Bay Company trading post, including that famous stockade, and then as we scan along there, the chief factor's house, reconstruction of, I guess, more or less colonial area buildings. An interesting place, but it's probably documented otherwise. And then over here is, oh, we can actually see this plane. Now across the river is Portland Airport, but over here we have Pearson Field, which is historically important. One of the first, if not the first, airports in the United States that is still in operation. A general use airport now, no scheduled commercial flights, somewhere over in that direction. So there's history from a variety of different eras in this park. Back on the other side of the street, where any crimes I commit will not be federal crimes. Not that I was planning on that. And we are coming to the end of Officers Row pretty soon, and then we're going to see some other things. So the placard there says the origin of this anchor is unknown. It was dredged out of the river, and its historical era and what type of ship it comes from is unknown. One important thing about this area is it's always been an important transit route for boats. Dating to before European contact, the Native Americans traded along the Columbia River quite heavily, going from inland, from the inland plateau all the way out to the coast. And even to this day, Vancouver is a very important port, especially for certain things, especially wheat that's coming from inside and going out of Vancouver, out of Portland, out of Kalama, mostly to East Asia. So this is another memory of how air, water, and land transit all connected in this area. This is the edge of the historical site, the historical area. And interesting to note that up until the end of World War II, this would have also pretty much been the edge of Vancouver. Vancouver was just downtown, that army barracks, and then some residential neighborhoods to the north. So all of this, maybe not all of this, I'm sure there was a few houses, but all of this started getting built when this area developed very rapidly after World War II. And so now Vancouver goes like 10 miles in that way. And that sign there says Vancouver Central Park, which is not really a park. It's a series of parks and other public areas that stretch from the federal national park down there. This right here is just a city park. That's a high school, and beyond that we will see Clark College, the VA, another city park, a lot of public use facilities here, and it's actually really nice. We have these big wide boulevards, we have all these trees. It's even nicer when it's not still raining in June. But one of the things I was thinking about is that we saw the freeway and then we saw this park, which goes for about 3/4 of a mile east of downtown. So there's this big block of public facilities, which are very nice public facilities, but they kind of separate the residential areas to the east from downtown. So with the exception of people like me, people aren't going to casually walk from those residential areas to downtown. And that's a city planning decision that was made literally 150 years ago, just when the area was settled by Europeans and where they put their first facilities. And it still affects things today. There's the old library building, which is now an administrative library building. A lot of great memories of being there when I was a child, and another example of a public facility here in this section of town. This road I've been walking along is Mill Plain Boulevard, which is one of the major west-east, east-west arterial streets coming out of downtown. The other is 4th Plain, which is in this direction. So one thing, there is a good chance that the light rail to Vancouver is finally going to be built. It might take a while to get there because they have to build a bridge. And it would have to go through this intersection. This is the planned route. It would probably stop once in downtown, and then it'll have to cross underneath this bridge and then turn here to go north to 4th Plain, and then perhaps go on from there to the east. So that's a lot of turns, and that's going to make it more difficult. And a lot of that is just the legacy of, like, when they built I-5, they didn't think there was probably going to be a light rail. And even going further back, when downtown Vancouver was built where it is, they didn't think about that. When the Amtrak station was built where it is, over 100 years ago, they didn't ever think about, well, will we ever have to connect this to light rail? It was 1906. They didn't know about stuff like that. So along with some social and political issues and financial issues about building the bridge, there is also just a lot of engineering issues, and a lot of those are caused by the fact that a lot of residential Vancouver was never connected to downtown Vancouver, so it just never became natural to have really easy mass transit between the residential and the downtown parts. If that makes any sense. That is my summary of it. And over here we have more park facilities. We have a sheltered picnic area. We have a gigantic playground structure, and over there hidden behind some trees, we have what looks to be a community garden of some sort. And of course, we just have these big green grassy lawns. So we're coming up on a BRT, bus rapid transit stop, pretty soon. And this is the Clark College campus. And across from it, we can see parts of the VA campus. And so I have mixed feelings about an area like this, because in some ways I really enjoy the green spaces, the public spaces, those nice leafy boulevards. But also, things like this lend themselves to automobile-related development a lot, and so this area is not easy to walk. You know, these are wide roads. So, you know, this is where I grew up. This is kind of like what I consider to be standard. I've been here since I was 3 years old, walking up this exact same sidewalk for 40 years now. And I guess I'll have to go resort to cliche. It is what it is. This is what a lot of America looks like, and I don't object to it, but in some ways it's changing for a lot of factors, and one of those will be the arrival of light rail. And Clark College, because of its importance and just because of where it is probably a logical termination point for the first step of that light rail building. Okay, well, another day I might show Horse Plain, might show other parts of Vancouver, but for now, I'm getting on that BRT.